excited to have Arnie and David Diaz, the Diaz Duo.
Yeah, back again.
DiazDuo.com, just like the DuncanDuo.com. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So I appreciate it. They're with Waterstone Mortgage, our preferred mortgage lender on the radio show, and we're going to talk with them about some mortgage stuff today. And we also have Paul Arrington with Arrico, Realty and Property Management with us today, talking about property management. I think that's one of the things I want to start the show off with today is, the investor side of things. A lot of people that listen to the show are looking for income. They're looking for investment opportunities, and they want to know what what to do in the real estate space. And obviously, we can certainly help them evaluate and purchase. We've worked with large financial institutions as well as just, small Joe Blow buying one investment property. We've worked with the hedge funds, the institutional investors, so we have a pretty good idea on how to model what to find and buy and what you can make a good return on and what neighborhoods are good to buy for rental and investment properties, and of course flips as well. But I thought it was a good topic to talk to you guys about because so many investors today are using cash when they probably shouldn't, because they can make a greater return and a greater return on their cash with financing. And a lot of investors think, I don't want to pay a fee to a property management company because I think that it'll impact my return. But in reality, it's the exact opposite of that. They're going to get a better return. And I think it's funny, I was hearing from an investor this week, and he said, the property will only make about a 10% return. I don't want to pay 10% to the property management company because then I don't have a return. And it's like, no, the math doesn't work like that. The math is your return isn't going to, it's not going to eat away your whole return for the property management fee. So, but anyway, I wanted to start with, Arnie and David Diaz. And I wanted to ask you guys, what does it look like for an investor today to get a mortgage on a property? What kind of down payment? What interest rates are they looking at? How many properties can they, are there limitations on that, so that our audience has an idea of what it looks like from an investor standpoint? Then we can talk to Paul about the benefits of a property manager in terms of how it can save, and make money for, for an investor.
Well, I'll let David chime in on some color commentary, but basically off the bat, you can put as little as 15% down now. Of course, then you have mortgage insurance, so 20% down for investors. As far as rates are concerned, it's about 0.5%, 3/8% higher than you would get if you were buying a house to live in, right, David?
Right, correct.
Yeah. So, so it's not that much different. I think when you analyze rental property, you still have to look at make the numbers work. Maybe the 80%. But here's the one thing about it is that if you use all your cash to buy the rental properties or buy investment properties, then there's going to be a limited amount of properties you're going to be able to buy.
Right.
So the other thing to think about is then you got repairs that you got to spend money on and so forth and so on. So you're limiting your cash that maybe is earning a pretty good return someplace else.
Could be a better return, right? And I think that the idea is, especially for some investors, preserve that capital, so that maybe you could go buy more properties, but instead you buy 3 with all cash. You could have bought 6 or 7. And again, we're not giving advice because we want anyone to go out and over leverage themselves or make mistakes.
Right.
We're not wanting to put anyone in a bad position. So certainly, if you're comfortable buying cash, and that's the only way you want to buy. Okay, that's fine. But there are alternatives that are safe, from a financial perspective, that may be a better move for you to look at from an evaluation.
Yeah, you got to analyze the whole thing. It's not only just the cash flow, but it's also the projections or forecasts about what the appreciation will be on that property too.
Right, and the same thing goes with people that are looking for maybe shorter term holding periods. There's financing out there for those types of people. If they only want to own it for a year or two and then they want to flip it or whatever, they don't always have to use their own cash. And again, they're going to have to qualify. They're going to need good credit, those types of things.
Well, here's the biggest investment purchase out there today, probably, is the parents buying an investment home for their kids.
We're seeing a lot of that, yeah.
Right,
There's a lot of that going on right now, and there's the gifting side of it, so there's a tax benefit from there. There's lots of different reasons why people are looking, at that side. Are there limitations on? I know a few years ago there were, because we ran into this, but are there limitations on how many investment properties you can have financed? Like I know Fannie and Freddie at one point had a limitation. Do they still have that?
Still have a limitation.
Yeah.
Well, there used to be basically 4 maximum financed properties, but that can go up to 10, and that can actually be unlimited in some situations. It just depends on the investor. So. Okay,
terrific. So there's options out there from an investor.
There are options, but you do, depending on how many you have, you do run into some boundaries.
Yeah, where there's limitations, and they maybe want a little bit more capital because you're a little riskier.
Exactly.
So speaking to Paul, I wanted to talk to you next, on the management piece, because a lot of people look at investment property and they say, oh, I don't really want to deal with it. I don't want to have to get the calls and the toilets. And we've got some solutions for that coming in the future, something, big that we're working on. But in reality, if a consumer steps in and they say, you know what, I want to buy a couple investment properties, but I don't ever want to have to talk to a tenant. That's you guys' job.
That's exactly, and that's actually preferred too. We don't necessarily want the tenant and the owner to start conversations together, because then it puts three people, and you know what happens then. You just get a whirlwind of mess. He said, she said, and so forth. The way we operate is we sign a management agreement with the owner, and that basically, and a power of attorney, and that basically releases them from any responsibility. The only time I'll contact the owner is if a repair is over a certain dollar limitation, and I'll need their approval, because if they're expecting $900 a month in income every month, and all of a sudden they get $150, they're going to be a little annoyed if they didn't know what was going on now. And our software system automatically relates to them what's going on as well. But that's the preferred way, is to keep the owner and the tenant at arm's length. That way, if it comes down to a legal issue, I have all the documentation of everything that was said, and all of our notes in our systems and so forth. So if it came down to a legal issue, we wouldn't have one, because we've got all the documentation for it.
And I think, one of the things that people look at when they're looking at a property manager, like we talked about, when we talk about the fee, I think people really don't accurately, account for, your impact on their return, because you have to take your fee based on the whole annual number and then deduct it from the total income of the property to adjust your fee. And it's not like, whatever the fee is doesn't eat up all your profit. It eats up a very small portion of it, but it allows you to get a better tenant in there, better management, less vacancy, which in the long term saves you money versus viewing it as a cost. You have to view it as an investment.
Right, and that is a big misnomer. Like, well, you're taking all my profit. Well, it's really not, because our fee is nominal compared to what we're actually doing. You don't have to be involved with the property. We have all the legal ins and outs covered with our attorneys and so forth. Our vendors have all been vetted. We've got the proper vendors for the proper thing. So if something happens, because what we really are for a property manager, or as a property manager, is a risk mitigator.
Yeah.
That's our job. We don't want unlicensed contractors in there hurting somebody or doing something wrong, or God forbid, like I saw in the news the other day, some old couple paid $25,000 for a renovation that never happened. We make sure that doesn't happen, because if you're living in another state or even another country, you're not going to see that property ever. Maybe I've had owners that I've never met.
Right.
And I've managed a house for 9 years.
You manage rental properties for me that I've never seen. I mean, honestly, it's Angela obviously has likely seen them, but literally, I think that the key to, your value is really, especially for the consumer that wants little involvement, that wants, I wouldn't call it completely residual, but wants more of, what I call mailbox money, right?
Right.
The money shows up, they get value gains, and you're always going to have some activity when it comes to real estate, but that's the nice part about it. And best website, rentmytampahome.com. Is that best? Rent My Tampa Home. So if you're out there thinking about renting your property, Paul's a great resource. He's done great for us, and we're excited.
Andrew, being a numbers guy, I think you need to analyze, what is the cost of the marketing going to cost you? What's the cost to find somebody?
That's it. Your
what's
time.
What's your time? What's the time? What's your time? How many hours are you losing from work because?
That's it.
Because you have to go show up, you had to show up with you had to meet the air conditioning guy out there. Well, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't factor that in. They don't factor that in when they decide to rent a property themselves, and they make a lot of mistakes, or it goes vacant because they don't have time to get to it, and then 1 month passes and another month. So